So while I was scrounging around for components for my new computer, I found this computer on the side of the street on trash day, and I plugged it in and it's fully functional. It has nearly identical specs to my old computer, which broke almost 10 years ago. So I plan to use this as my dedicated digital DJ setup because this was the type of technology that was around when I started DJing. However, I want to turn it into a laptop because no one DJs with desktops. That's not cool. We're going to do something about that. And I know it says compact on it. Well, it's about to get more compact than that.
greensandmachines.com.
Alright, we're really in for it now. Just taking out all the stuff from the original case. I'm simultaneously impressed and disgusted at the sheer amount of engineering that must have gone into making this ugly false front panel and all the attachment mechanisms so it would attach onto there. This might look sexy for 2009, but come on. And just look at all this random holes punch pressed in the front of the actual front. It's crazy. The only things I'm really interested in keeping are the subplate that bolts the motherboard on, and maybe this little part where the fan comes on. Everything else, I'll just build it all over again because this is so confusing unnecessarily. So there we have it, all the body panels disassembled. It was fairly easy, just drilling out a whole bunch of pop rivets. And as much as I hate working with sheet metal, this could have been a lot worse. They could have been spot welded together. So, such amazing engineering. But we only need this panel, that panel, and maybe I'll reuse this part for the bottom part. You know what, actually, I changed my mind. I love sheet metal because all you need to cut it with is some aviation snips. You don't need no cutting torch. You don't need an angle grinder. You don't need a chop saw. Just use hand tools. Yes, deburring. It's a pain in the ass, but let's do it. So I drafted up this monstrosity of a back panel to fill in all the gaps in the back panel of the old back panel. Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. Alright, so I've done some pretty intense modifications to the back panel, because first of all the power supply had to be rotated 90 degrees. I built this secondary panel to rivet onto it, to reinforce it, and to give the power supply a place to mount on. I had to change the chassis fan because this one is too big now. So I have this smaller fan. It's going to bolt on where it bolts on. And it won't interfere with the inputs and outputs, which actually I had to punch through that panel also. And as for the actual chassis fan, this one I found in the trash is going to go on the top panel because it has that connector like the original one, straight onto the motherboard. And this was a lot easier to do thanks to my hand Whitney punch. It would have taken forever if I drilled all those holes. Punching them is a lot cleaner and a lot faster. Oh, and I also made some little support brackets for the power supply, because that thing is pretty heavy to be bolting on from one direction. I might do similar things like that when I make the front panel.
I didn't get any footage of making the front panel since it was taking way too long at that point. I just made it from another piece of galvanized steel from that trashpicked ventilation ducting I've been using, and I punched holes in it for the fan, power switch, and CD drive. I had to do some intense modifications to get the front panel USB and audio inputs to fit, which involved stripping down the plastic on some spacers to fit into the holes on the board, so I wouldn't risk the mounting screws shorting out. This attached onto its own bracket, and I made brackets for the CD and hard drives as well.
So here's a view of the inside. So that fan was added. That fan was upgraded. What the original used to be back there. And then the power supply was rotated to fit, likewise with the drives. And then that front panel USB thing was added. I had to take a lot of liberties with screw hole locations. For instance, the power supply bolts onto the case right there, where normally it was just a screw for holding the power supply together. And then I put two little brackets under there to support this. And then the whole bracket assembly for this I had to make, except I just bolted the drives on the left side of the case. The rest of the brackets, I got some better footage elsewhere. And then those extra LEDs just hook up right there, twist tied together. And then the power button was taken off that front panel I found in the trash. And that includes the hard drive LED. And that fan looks great. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied thus far. Even though it took 10 million hours to do, it'll be worth it. And with that, all the corners for mounting the top panel are attached. I just gotta put it on there and punch some more holes, tap some holes, then we'll be ready to complete the top panel. And yes, I kind of ran out of space for the pop rivets, so this part actually is kind of loose, but it's gonna bolt onto the power supply because I couldn't put the rivets there because the power supply is in the way. This is more or less the design of the case. As you can see, I made these brackets for the CD drive, and then the hard drive, and the power supply, and then this little one right here for the front panel USB and audio. And I punched all those holes for the fan, and then I punched these few holes for the on button. And back here I think I already showed it, but I modified it for a smaller fan. And then I made this sub panel for attaching the power supply. Alright, final additions here for this hinge bracket thing. I bolted a piece of aluminum plate onto the monitor and tapped some holes in it and bolted a hinge to that. This is just some standard door hinge that I found in the street somewhere. And then to the case itself, I made some aluminum spacers, basically just 1032 coupling nuts set to the right height to clear the monitor of the keyboard. And this just opens up like so. There's really no angle adjustment, so it just bottoms out at some generic obtuse angle that was preset. And there's also a plate of aluminum right here to prevent the top panel from flexing with all the weight. As for the keyboard, this was the only component I actually had to buy, minus some pop rivets and screws. It's like one of those keyboards for a tablet. I had to file off some latch things here and the hinges because they were protruding up, and I wanted to make this as low profile as possible. And then right here I machined some wood things. I'll get a better view of that. I machined these on the lathe. They kind of serve a dual function of holding the keyboard down and also as a pad for the monitor to rest on when it's in the folded position. I put some little rubber sticky stuff on it, on the front ones, so it's a soft landing. And the only thing I really want to add is some kind of latch to hold this thing shut for transport. Oh, and speaking of transport, over here I added on this nice carrying handle, so you know it's portable. Other thing I might want to do is consolidate the power cables, like merge these two so that it's only one cable lead to plug into the wall, like an actual laptop, instead of two, and maybe hide this monitor cable a little better, but I think it's alright where it is. And also maybe get a longer cable for the keyboard so I can use the back panel USB instead of the front one, but that's okay for now. Alright, let's fire this thing up and see what it can do. I actually want to cut the lights out to see that awesome red LED in action. Oh, and funny thing about this monitor, I actually pulled this thing out of a pile of e-waste that was probably sitting out in the rain at some point, so I think it got water damage, like up there, like that. Liquid crystal distortion or something. That sounds like an album name. But I thought it looked kind of funny, like that pattern kind of looked like the Vice logo right there. But anyways, if you've seen my video where I built my own turntable, you probably already know what this computer is for. It's for running Serato Scratch Live, my DJ software. And I think this computer barely meets the minimum specs for it, interestingly. I mean, back when I started DJing, I would have never dreamed I would find a free computer on the side of the street that could run Serato, so I think this is payback for that computer I had that broke. Alright, enough talk, let's load up that library. Alright, I got this thing loaded up with my music, so you know what that means. It's time to mix some non-copyrighted music.
Green some machines. Green some machines. Green some machines. .com.
Just gotta be careful with this track pad because I accidentally hit buttons that I don't want to hit. Now, one trick up my sleeve I got in case that trackpad is too unreliable is this Logitech trackball mouse that I found at a rummage sale for $1. So I can comfortably, conveniently maneuver around the computer with all the ease of a non-laser ballpoint trackball you can get. Now I know what you might be thinking. That ain't no laptop. That's just a desktop modified to be in a slim case with a keyboard and a monitor bolted on top of it. And you're absolutely right, that's exactly what it is. But I don't care, it meets all the criteria of a laptop in my eyes. You see? It's a computer with a monitor and a keyboard on it, but it's also portable, because you got this nice handle right here. Yeah. So, tell the haters, get out of my face immediately and give me a thumbs down, alright?